Hey, what's up, business nerds? Dan Platta, home service CFO from Blue Sky Services here with kind of a unique little episode that we're going to do. We have Chelsea Ripley on from Gusto, and I got my general manager of our bookkeeping business, Janelle Moss, in the house. And one thing we're seeing in our bookkeeping business is just more and more and more people setting up payroll systems and doing payroll the right way and switching payroll systems. This thing that I see over and over again is everybody like jumps on QuickBooks for bookkeeping, which is great. We use QuickBooks exclusively for bookkeeping, and then they assume they should use it for payroll. And I don't want to like throw QuickBooks under the bus, but I'm just not a huge fan of their payroll system. We tried it and really struggled with it. Again, love QuickBooks for bookkeeping, just not a big fan for payroll. And there was a funny thing that happened in Chelsea. This is like a backstory for us. We have 5, 6 different businesses. One of them is this administrative company, but we have some window cleaning companies, some maid service companies, and we were on Sure Payroll before. Like I said, we had tried QuickBooks Payroll, didn't have luck with it. Continue to struggle with clients that have it for bookkeeping purposes. Sure Payroll was fine. Nothing against Sure Payroll, worked great. But this funny thing would happen when I would do a demo with a bookkeeping client, and we'd have 300 bookkeeping clients, and so I've done hundreds of demos, and we talk about payroll, and they'd be like, "Well, I'm either just setting up payroll, or I set it up with these guys, and I don't really understand it. I don't really like it." And they're like, "Who should we use for payroll?" And this funny thing happened where I'd be like, "Well, you should use Gusto." And then they'd be like, "Well, who do you use?" And I was like, "Well, we use Sure Payroll, but mostly just because it's such a pain in the butt to switch." And like my mindset previously was this is horrendous to try to switch, because we tried to switch to like QuickBooks one time, and then when we switched to Sure Payroll, and we have like 100 employees in all these different businesses, it's like I don't want to switch payroll companies, because it's like in the world of switching systems, it's right up there with switching your CRM, or it was in my mind. It's like I got all this data and all these people to bring over, and I got to do all this stuff. So we just like put off switching forever. Eventually we switched, and it was like not, I mean, it's work. There's things to do. And Chelsea, you're gonna walk us through some of that stuff. But it's like when I pull a band-aid off my kids' legs and they're like super afraid of it, and then they're gonna cry and make a big deal out of it. And I'm just like, you just ripped the band-aid off. Like, it's fine. You'll be fine. So anyway, we're talking about Gusto Payroll. I'm first gonna set the stage of what a payroll service is and why you need it and when to set it up or when to switch. And then we're going to get into the how and how do you do it, and why is it not as bad as maybe your mindset is, like just like mine was. So the what, when you're first starting your home service business, 99% of us are paying people cash under the table because it's our brother-in-law or it's our cousin that's helping us or whatever the case is. And we never intended on scaling this, multi-$100,000 or multi-million-dollar business. But all of a sudden the work keeps coming, and then we need to find people, and not everybody wants to get paid cash under the table. And that's pretty hard for you to keep track of as you're scaling your business. And so all of a sudden you need employees, and sometimes you're using subcontractors, which Gusto can handle too. But all of a sudden this business starts scaling, whether you like it or not. It just kind of happens to a lot of us. And then we say, oh crap, like I need a better way to pay people. And then we start like cutting them checks, and then we're trying to be a tax expert. And the whole what of this payroll system is it does all of that for you at an unreasonably low price, I would say, for the level of expertise that somebody like Gusto would bring to the table, and how much time and effort it would take you to try to figure out and manage the tax side of that and making sure the employees get checks. So, I mean, the minute that you need to start paying people, you need a payroll system. And if you need a payroll system, you need Gusto. The why, to me, that's the what. That's what you need, is the payroll system. Because I'm going to go back to the what for a second. I also see people using their CPA to do their payroll, and they're paying them like a couple $100 a month. And I'm just like, why? You could pay Gusto like $50 a month, and it would work better, and it would probably take you less time than it takes. I just like, there's a lot of ways to handle getting your employees money or getting your subcontractors money. And we're just in a digital age, and I think we all need to embrace it. And it just is so easy, you guys. It's so freaking easy. So Chelsea's going to show us some of that. The why, to me, why you need that payroll system set up is because this is like personally for me. And I'm like a bookkeeping nerd. I'm an accounting nerd, and taxes drive me nuts and scare the crap out of me, because I'm not a CPA. I'm a finance guy. I worry about the business decision making and making money that way. I don't really worry about the tax side of it. God forbid I would be responsible to make sure that the tax authorities got the right amount of money. We'd have been out of business a long time ago if Chelsea didn't exist. So we need a system like Gusto to make sure we don't screw things up with the state or with the IRS, because you do not want to make monies with the tax authorities. You just want to like know that it's been done correctly and that you have nothing to worry about. And like that allows you to sleep at night. But if you're the one on the hook for making sure the authorities are paid correctly, you ain't going to be sleeping at night. So that's the why to me. Yeah, it's efficient to get money to your people. Yeah, it's like regular, easy to use, super affordable. Those are all good whys. But I think the why for me is like, I just don't want to be on the hook for like having to make sure that the authorities get paid. Gusto makes it so easy. When to switch or when to set up payroll. I mean, like in my mind, the minute you have to start paying people besides yourself, and I talk a lot about this on the channel, is even if it's just you, you might want to set yourself up on payroll, be taxed as an S corp, get a bunch of payroll tax savings. Other videos about that for you guys to dive in. But when is very much to me like the minute you have employees starting up and you've got to pay people, you should be getting a system like Gusto. And the when might be like, oh, I'm already on QuickBooks payroll. When should I switch? And I'm curious, Chelsea, from your standpoint, is there a time? Is it just like hey, switch whenever, because why wait another day? Or is it like hey, probably switch at quarter end or at year end if you're already on a payroll system? Is there a rhyme or a reason to when somebody should switch payrolls?
Yeah, great question, Dan. And nice to meet everyone. The easiest time of the year to switch in terms of the amount of data that the IRS asks for is at the beginning of a new quarter. So they use the standard quarter system, January, February, March. So if you don't want to switch at the beginning of the year, then switch at the beginning of April. This is a great time of year as well in July because we're at the start of the third quarter, another good time of year to switch, or at the start of October, which is the beginning of Q4. So anytime we're going into a new quarter, the IRS is a little bit more friendly, and that would be my recommend. If you just have a couple of employees, honestly, moving over in the middle of a quarter is not as daunting as it seems. It's a little bit more data entry because the IRS gets a little fussier in an open quarter, but still not super challenging and something that Gusto can absolutely kind of hold your hand through it during the process.
If you're gonna, and I think we're gonna get into this when we start talking about how to like set things up and what that process looks like when you're switching or setting up a new payroll system. What is the timeline that you should give yourself? So let's say somebody wants to switch Q4 here, right at the cusp of Q3, Q4. They're like, yep, I know I got to switch payroll systems. And for a lot of us, Q4 kind of gets nuts. Like we all get super busy in Q4. So it's like, we don't want to take on too many projects, but August, September usually is quite a bit slower for us. A lot of our clients aren't thinking about employing us to pressure wash their house or clean their windows or do this landscaping project. Our clients are thinking about the last vacation of the summer and back to school stuff. So like that tends to mean now that's a good time for us to do these extra projects that we maybe put off from the busy season. That was a really long ass wait for me to word that question. Let me get back to the question. The question being, when, if somebody wants to switch between like Q3 and Q4, do they reach out to Gusto the week before? Like, should they reach out the month before? What's the kind of timeline that they should give themselves to make sure that it's up and running and like they've got everything they need to start in Q4?
Yeah, good question. Honestly, I think that a good timeline is whenever you run that last payroll of the quarter. So let's say you wanted to start your payroll on October 1st and you ran your last payroll in September on the 15th. You can run that last payroll, sign up for a Gusto account, and then get all that information because you're going to have all the details we ask for, which would be that last payroll in September. And it will probably take you maybe an hour and a half to set up the entire account from start to finish if you have all the information in front of you, and we'll go over what that is. And then it takes my team 24 to 48 hours to approve the account once it's completed. I suggest a little bit of a longer window just in case we have questions. Maybe you forgot an apostrophe in your name and we want to make sure that what we have matches what the IRS has. As Dan mentioned, you never want to confuse or ignore the IRS. So we want to just make sure that everything looks compliant and right as rain. So in a kind of longer case scenario, I'd say give yourself 3 full days.
Okay. it blew my mind when we switched. Again, like in my mind, this is something that's going to take months. This is like a buildup. And God forbid, like, yeah, we got like a wrong number, a wrong letter somewhere. And how would we know? And so it's like me just being naive to the process. But we switched like the week before Christmas, and we have 5 different businesses. And like I said, like 100+ employees in there. And we got all of that done, and we were running payroll and Gusto in January. And I was like, what fairies showed up and just made everything happen? I don't know. Everybody kind of cut me out of the process, actually, is probably why it worked. But it blew my mind as to like how fast we were able to switch, because in my mind, it was just like, this is going to take forever because we're going to need all this stuff. And I think this is going to be like a transition here into like talking through the stuff that they need. If they know they're going to switch, is there data that they should start? I mean, like you said, we kind of need like that last payroll anyway. So you can't really start switching until that payroll data exists. But is there tax ID numbers and stuff that they should be gathering prior to, even before they run that last payroll, that they can like make that transition easier?
Yeah, 100%. And I don't know about all the rest of you, but I have a little bit of ADHD. So if I'm going to transition in a project like this, I got to have all the information in front of me before I start, or it will never get finished. So my suggestion is to always have all of your relevant payroll tax info right at hand. So that includes your FEIN number, that number you registered your business with the IRS, and the exact name that they registered that number under, just so we don't miss that pesky apostrophe. And then all of your state tax registration numbers. So some people keep those in a file. Some people have those online. It depends a little bit on your state. But Gusto has a list of all 50 states that you can reference and see what numbers we're going to ask for. And if you don't know where those numbers are, how to track them down or contact your state agency to make sure you have the correct one. If you're starting a business in a new state, we also have a lot of resources to guide you through how to register for your state tax in that new state and give you a vague idea of the timeline. So that's pretty much it in terms of taxes. On the other side of that, if you have employees and you've been paying people throughout the year, we require, and by we, I mean the IRS, year-to-date totals of the wages and taxes paid. The reason for that is that when you transition to a new payroll provider like Gusto, we become responsible for sending your employees their W-2s at the end of the year. So we want to make sure that all of those taxes that have been paid to the federal and state agencies are accurately represented on their W-2 when we send those out at year end.
And so that's kind of why you need that last payroll from the prior period, so you have that data.
Exactly. So if you're transitioning, let's just say at the end of the fourth quarter, as you did, Dan, which you're a brave man. That is one of the harder times a year, only because of the data entry side of it. We would need the historical year-to-date totals from the last pay stub of Q1, the last pay stub of Q2, the last pay stub of Q3, and then all of the payrolls in the open quarter. So all of the historical totals from payrolls in Q4 so far. If you have a larger team, if you've got more than 10 W-2s on your team, Gusto can take the reins as long as we have 2 weeks of lead time and actually do the bulk of that data entry for you. And we don't charge anything for that service. So something to consider for the larger businesses out there.
Like I said, just a bunch of fairies doing things that I'm not aware of to make everything work smoothly. Let's get into like the how and what that process looks like. And Chelsea, you had shared a link with me before. Do you want me to like share that so everybody else can see it? We can kind of walk through what that checklist looks like.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. Then they'll have a good visual.
Let's do it. And this is a video link. I'm not going to like start playing the videos, but I believe this is a video link that if you're setting up Gusto, you're going to have access to these videos, not just the checklist, but literally videos to help walk you through how to fill all this information out, right?
Absolutely. And Dan, feel free to share this with all of your people. This is actually something a colleague of mine created just for herself and the accountants and firms that she works with across the US. And she was kind enough to share it out to our team. So this will walk you through all of the steps of setting up Gusto. The example that we have here assumes that you've been running payroll already and have previous payrolls, that's step 7 to enter. If you are a brand new business running payroll for the first time, this will look a little bit different. There'll be a few less steps, but you'll still be able to get a good idea of what's required.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So just walking through here, right? Company addresses, that's pretty easy. We all kind of have that information. Adding employees, that would be like putting their direct deposit type of information in and their tax ID, stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So company address, and that includes, where are you registered with the IRS? And then in this new land of remote workforces, if any of you have folks working from home, they would be considered a company address as well. So taxes are due where the work is physically being done.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that. I say it to myself 10 times a day. So if you do have a remote workforce, as in number 3 on those tips there, the work address should be where the employee physically works for the company.
We
And
got
Dan,
a
there should
lot
be
of
a
those
little,
in our business. We got a lot of it.
yeah, exactly. So if you have employees in all 50 states, you're going to be paying payroll tax in all 50 states. I didn't make the rules. And if you want to hit the little arrow, it should take you to the next step, which is add employee.
Oh, how nifty is that? Look at this.
Yeah. So you can kind of get an idea of, what the process is going to look like. For this one, you're going to be able to invite employees to enter their own details, which includes stuff like confirming their address, social security number, bank account information for direct deposit, which is included in all Gusto tiers, and then filling out their W-4, which is where they indicate what their withholding will be, both federally and in the state.
Yeah. Janelle on our team gets all of the feedback about when people trip up on stuff. So Janelle, I'm curious, is there a spot in the process where people either get cold feet or get hung up where you see like a consistent thing that throws business owners off?
I do. It's a little bit further down. I think the employee setup section of this, where the employee really takes the reins and does it themselves, is super efficient. That's almost never a problem unless they enter like an incorrect routing number or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then Gusto has, I don't know, I've seen the emails. What do they say, Chelsea? Like, so-and-so's routing number is bad. They need to re-enter it or whatever. So it'll send you a warning so you know that person isn't going to be able to get paid until there's correct information there. That and the employee is super slick.
And you'll get a little test deposit from us. And if that test deposit doesn't make it into the account, we let you know immediately.
Yeah. And employees are on that, right? Like you don't have to hound them to fill it out because they want to be paid.
Yeah,
so that's
they
awesome.
generally like to get a paycheck.
Yeah, exactly. Step 4, I think, is where it starts to get hard for people, especially if they don't keep a file system of any kind, or if they're brand new. I just helped somebody actually this morning who just having trouble with finding their number for Tennessee. So I logged into their Gusto account, clicked around, saw you guys had the help for Tennessee. It said, call this number if you didn't receive your paper when you applied or whatever. So I gave him the number and he called, and I'm not sure if he got what he needed, but I mean, it just couldn't be easier to find the resource you need to go track down whatever paper you don't have.
I was just saying, I feel like, I'm not saying I'm the same as every business owner out there, but I think, Chelsea, to what you said earlier, we all have a little bit of ADD going on. And I'm pretty dialed in on like our federal numbers of the FEIN type of stuff, but the state tax ID numbers or like unemployment ID numbers, I was like, I just have no idea. And I don't know where it is. And I don't know how to get it. And that was super overwhelming to me because in our bookkeeping business, it's like, yeah, we got employees in Nebraska, Florida, North Dakota, California, Ohio, Minnesota, South Carolina. And I was like, I don't know what I don't know. All I know is that I have no idea how to find these numbers, where to get them, how to set them up, all that stuff. Oh, we have Wisconsin too. So that part overwhelmed the hell out of me. And the resources for Gusto, I was actually gonna pull it up on my other screen here if I could find it. But the ability to like walk through state by state what Gusto needs, and it literally like spells out where to find it and has the link for the website and bullet pointed instructions of where to click to go get the thing. And like if I didn't have that, I would be banging my head against the wall, soaking from my own tears. But instead, I can, like, even I, who's afraid of going to state websites to find this information and go log in, even I was able to figure that out. And that
Yeah,
was
and let's say you made a mistake. Like, let's say you put in the wrong state tax ID number.
that would never happen. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I'm talking about a different client that we have, of course.
Could have been me.
Someone recently put in the wrong state number. It was like they transposed or typoed or something. And so someone got a notice in the mail saying, hey, Florida is angry about something. Can you please file your papers? Sure enough, log into the client's Gusto, and there's a little section. Oh, if you got a notice, just quick upload it, and we're going to take it from there. We're going to troubleshoot it. And if you need to do anything, here's your step-by-step instructions. So not only is it everything went perfectly, but also if it didn't, here's how we can help you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you guys are not alone. Getting those numbers entered, I would say, I'll kind of echo Janelle on this. This can seem like the most overwhelming part of it, especially if you have, employees in multiple states. We do have a partner that we work with, CorpNet, who can help you register if you're doing it for the first time. Candidly, I think that you guys can all do it yourself. I have faith in you. I know that you can do it. The states don't charge anything to register for hiring W-2s. And so it's just a couple of minutes of your time and a little bit of dealing with a bureaucratic and bad website. Why the government doesn't have better websites, we'll never know. But if you can have the patience to get through that step, then entering it into Gusto, we'll make sure the information is correct. And if it isn't, we'll ensure that you can get it fixed.
It does make me question what number I punched in there in the first. I mean, what number that client of ours punched in there in the first place, Janelle?
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, my client today from Tennessee was saying, oh, the Department of Labor here, he Googled the phone number, and sure enough, it came up as what Gusto had referenced. And then he said, it's only a 1.2 star satisfaction rating. And he said when he had called before, they had sent him to the website and then he couldn't find what he needed. I said, well, is there an address? So he was going to go to the physical location. He was going to go totally analog, but he didn't have a lot of hope with the 1.2 rating. So anyways,
there's not a whole lot of option to shop around.
Nope, you're stuck.
You're just in the state that you're in.
Not state tax agencies.
So we get our state tax info in, and now this add bank account, is this just so that it's connected to your business bank account? So money's coming
exactly.
In, going out as needed?
Yeah, pretty basic. We do have an option to verify your bank account instantly with a third party we use called Plaid. Plaid is great when it works, but they definitely have a bias towards the larger national banks. If you are banking with a small local bank, yes, keep it up, but it's likely you will have to manually verify your account. Pretty basic. You just enter your routing number and account number. We pop those test deposits in to make sure you didn't transpose one of those numbers, and then have you confirm that you received them.
Oh yeah. Easy enough. Moving on.
I know you said, sorry, I just want to interject a second.
Yeah.
I know you said if you run a final payroll on the 15th, you'd probably be good to start setting up for your next payroll at that time. We do have a lot of clients who pay weekly. So I feel like that's maybe crunching it a little too much. Do you think that's...
I think let's say you process payroll on a Friday, the window for that, if you are, using 2-day direct deposit would be, you need to have your Gusto account set up and ready to go by that next Wednesday. I definitely think it's still possible. If you don't mind maybe setting up the bulk of the information over the weekend, just so on Monday, my team can get our eyes on. Keep in mind that Gusto follows banking hours. If the banks are open, as a general rule, Gusto is also open. And so if you can get the bulk of this data entered so that my team can get their eyes on it on Monday morning, or you can give us a call and say, hey, the data is entered. Can you get your eyes on it? And if you're working with one of our partners like Dan and Janelle, that's definitely something we can help expedite.
Okay.
I would go so far as to say weekends are probably the best time for a business owner to be doing this, because that's generally when they're not bogged down with the day-to-day of the business. I think this sort of thing is overwhelming during the week because you've got all the problems of your clients, all the problems of your employees that you're working on. The weekend's the best time to do this sort of stuff. You can kind of isolate, throw some Baileys in your coffee and let it rip,
More of a rum chata person myself, but I can get behind that.
Pick your poison, Pay schedule. So this is where you would add in historical pay information. Do I have that right?
So this is actually where you will enter when you want your first payday to be. And so
gotcha.
like in Janelle's example, you would say like, all right, I want my first payday to be next Friday, which I think is the 27th maybe, or the 29th. And I want to pay my employees every week on Friday moving forward. And then we would say, cool, that looks good. Keep in mind, some states have really strange laws about how frequently and at what cadence your employees need to be paid. So we always recommend looking into that. But the standard, tends to be weekly, every other week, or bi-monthly, the 15th and the 30th.
Got it. Moving on. Here we go. Previous.
Here we go. Yep. So this is
the gun.
This is the step that I think that breeds the most fear in people's hearts. But just know that if you have the data in front of you, your year-to-date totals of both wages paid and taxes paid to the various tax entities, state and federal, this part will go pretty smoothly. Again, I would say of all of the pieces of this puzzle, reporting the previous payrolls correctly is the most important, so that you can ensure your employees get their W-2 at the end of the year and that they are correct. And the IRS knows how much money they should be refunding them in a perfect world.
In a perfect world.
And I don't know if this shows us the blank, but can you tell us what the blank says when it's time to fill in the blank, Chelsea? It's really as simple as what was this total on December 31st or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So it'll ask you for the check date. And as we referenced before, if let's say you were making this transition right now in July, we would need the last pay stub of March and the last pay stub of June, because those are the two closed quarters so far. And then any pay stubs so far in this month, because we're in an open quarter, Q3. And it'll just have you say like, all right, these were the wages paid, year to date total, fill that number in. Maybe these were the tips earned, fill in that total. This is how much was paid to income tax. This is how much was paid to Social Security and Medicare. And you just, plug in the totals from those pay stubs. From a compliance standpoint, pay stubs are required to have that information. So if you've been using a previous payroll provider that doesn't supply that info, there may be need to look into that. But you can almost always download a report if you've been using QuickBooks Online. That report is pretty accessible to see what those details are.
Yeah. Yep. I was gonna say, I feel like every other payroll system at least has decent reports that I've seen to get the data out to put into the right system to be on, aka Gusto. Signing documents. This was like
it's fun.
Yeah, this part was like super easy. I had to like sign one for each of our companies, and it was super efficient to just go through and check the boxes.
Yeah, essentially the power of attorney for the company. So this just ensures that whoever you are setting up this account, you have legal authority to make business decisions for the company you're setting up. If you're signatory, or if that person, the CEO or the business owner, is international, then we do have a workaround. We'll just have you manually sign that form the old school way with pen and ink, and scan us a passport, and we can push the approval through that way.
Old school, pen and paper. Yeah. Unpaid tax liabilities. What do we got here?
You need to skip a bubble. Like if you don't have your state tax ID, can you skip the bubble and keep going, Chelsea?
Absolutely. So we put them in this order for a reason, only because a lot of this data builds on itself as you go. But if, for example, you don't know what your pay schedule is going to be quite yet, because you're not sure when you're going to have your Gusto account set up, you can skip ahead to a couple of the other numbers here. A couple of things that we need sort of right off the bat is the employee addresses to be confirmed. So if you're going to push anyone to get something done, push your employees to do their onboarding, because we don't know what states we need to be asking for until we know where your employees work. So if you can go in order, do. And if for whatever reason you're not able to complete that step until a previous step is done, we'll let you know. We'll say like, hey, nice try, but we need this information first.
Dig it. I dig it. What's this unpaid tax liabilities one?
Yeah, so this is interesting. So if you have been paying taxes all year long, then that's going to show up when you enter your previous payrolls. We're going to know like, hey, they're up to date on their Medicare, they're up to date on their income tax, everything looks good. If you transition in the middle of a quarter, so let's just say you want your first payroll to be in August, you've been paying people through July, often what will happen is that Gusto needs to take out the taxes that are due in that quarter when you run your first payroll. The reason for that is that your previous provider was taking those taxes out, but because they aren't due yet, they're not going to pay them on your behalf. So Gusto takes them out and then pays them on your behalf when they're due. This depends a little bit on who you were using previously. So it's always good to check like, hey, are you going to refund me that money, or are these going to be paid on our behalf? Something to just follow up with your previous payroll about. As noted in number 2, FUTA, which is the federal unemployment, will almost always be something that is due because it's due to the IRS in December. So pretty much anyone, if they're transitioning other than at the beginning of the year, are going to have a little bit of a balance that Gusto will debit and then hold on to accumulate and pay in December.
Got it. And so Gusto's going to pull out the money retroactively, and then you need to go to your existing payroll provider to get that money back from them if they've been withholding it, up to that point.
Yeah, in that open quarter. Exactly. So that's just something you'll want to confirm with them, like, hey, have you distributed these funds, or is this something that you'll be refunding to me?
Got it. No, that's a good double check. I hadn't thought about that, but I suppose they are holding some dough. So what do we have left? I feel like we're darn near done here.
Pretty much. So from there, you can connect apps. I know Dan mentioned that it sounds like a lot of you are probably using QuickBooks Online. So you can sync your QuickBooks Online with Gusto so that each time you run payroll, that information gets mapped into your QuickBooks account. And then we go to account approval. So like I said, if all that information in there and you haven't transposed any numbers, that usually takes 24 to 48 hours. If you're working with one of our partners, like Dan, tends to be a little bit quicker than that. And then we cut you loose to run payroll whenever you need to. Obviously, if you need a hand, we're always available to walk you through, especially that first payroll run. I'd say it takes most people about 4 minutes to process payroll when the time comes, depending on how many hours you have to enter and if there's any huge bonuses you want to give your employees.
Big bonuses, because payroll switching was so easy, you had so much money and time left over.
Exactly.
And just back to what I said earlier, like people are using their CPAs to process payroll for them. And I think it's a shell game type of thing where I think the CPA is probably just using Gusto and then charging the client a whole bunch of money. But it's like, to me, even like I could run payroll in Gusto, even I could do it. And it's not a skill set that I have, but it's so easy. And so I just always try to steer people away from like, you don't need to pay somebody. People always ask me, hey, can you guys just do my payroll for me? I'm like, no, just use Gusto. What value am I going to add? You want to send me the data for me to type in? That's going to take you more than 4 minutes versus just putting it into Gusto. Like, you don't need me. You need me to do your bookkeeping. You don't need me to enter stuff into your payroll system. I can't add any value. What do we miss? I feel like we covered a lot of ground. Is there anything else that we got to dig into here before we put a bow on it?
We did. It's really that easy,
Chelsea.
But I just wanted to give Chelsea a chance to tack on. If you want to add on services like time tracking, if you want your employees to log in and track their time right through Gusto so you don't have to enter hours, that's an option too, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So essentially, Gusto can be as basic or as intense as you need us to be. So if you're just like, I just need to run payroll for my cousin who I've been paying under the table, he's a family member, probably not going to sue me. Just do the basic payroll, pay the state, pay the IRS. Everyone is happy. Your cousin gets direct deposit. If you have a larger team and like Dan mentioned, suddenly you're growing and you're running hundreds of $1,000s a year. And you're like, oh man, like I could use support keeping track of my time, onboarding new employees, sending offer letters. Maybe you need an HR person and you don't want to hire somebody in-house. Gusto has designed itself so that as you grow, we can grow with you. And as you require more support or more tools, you can add those on as much or as little as needed.
Even did I see like even retirement benefits and other benefits like that you can do right through Gusto?
Heck yes. If you want health insurance for your employees, and it's a tough hiring market out there, we've all seen the data. So if you want to offer benefits, health insurance, and a 401k, Gusto is a licensed health insurance broker. So we can help you set that up. And we work with several awesome partners for 401k and retirement savings.
Booyah. Booyah.
Yeah. Heck yes. And it's a one-stop shop, right? Who wants to log into 47 different websites? I can't remember any of my passwords. So back to that ADHD. So Gusto allows you to log in and manage everything. You can manage your hiring. You can manage your firing if needed. You can manage your HR questions, having an employee handbook made, your health insurance, your retirement savings. We even have a recruiting tool. So if you're looking for new people, you can recruit directly from the Gusto platform.
No kidding. I didn't know you
subcontractor payments and 1099s too, right? So that's awesome.
Absolutely. Yep. Same rules apply. If you're on, one of our tiered plans, 2-day direct deposit for your contractors as well. And the great news is that while you're doing all of that, growing your business and making money, Gusto is making sure that you're compliant. So we're paying your taxes on time. We're filing your 941s at the end of the quarter. And then come year end, we're making sure all of your employees get the paperwork required to file their taxes with the IRS come April 15th.
Really the best part.
Peace of mind. Yeah.
It is. It's like I could never be trusted to play that role. It'd be unsafe. Well, Chelsea, thanks for jumping on and walking us through all that. Janelle, thanks for bringing your knowledge and expertise to the table. Guys, I hope you got a whole ton out of that. I hope if you don't have a payroll system, you're going to go get one now. And I hope if you go get a payroll system, or if you already have one, it's not as good as Gusto, because if you're not on Gusto, then you have one that's not as good as Gusto. Go get on Gusto. We'll drop our link for Gusto in the description here. So if you want to go check it out, go grab our link, sign up through that. What I miss? I think that wraps it up. I think we crushed it. Thanks for jumping on, you guys.
Too.
Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks, Chelsea. You're just the best.
Yeah. I hope happy hour is coming in hot for some of you guys in the later time zones.
Bring it. You don't have to tempt me. What time is it? I don't care. All right, guys, that's it. We'll put a wrap on it. You know what to do. Go make some money. We'll catch you on the next one.